Welcome to the Bangor Cricket Club Frogbox setup. In this video we'll take you through a step-by-step guide on how to set the Frogbox up so you can stream on your match days. Before you start, there's a few things that you need to do. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to speak to the person who runs the admin to make sure that the fixture has been scheduled on YouTube and that the SIM card that's in the kit is activated and has enough data to stream the matches. Another thing that you'll also need to do is make sure the following three things are charged. So that's the battery pack, the encoder and the camera, and all three of them are pictured in front of you there. Before you go any further, there's just a quick word of warning. So we just ask that you please take extra care with all the kit. It's really easy to damage the kit and it's all very, very expensive. So just make sure you do not twist, kink or put any strain on any of the wires or any other equipment in the kit, just to avoid it getting broken. So let's start the setup. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to put the tripod up. When you stand it up, be extra careful because when you open it at the bottom, there's a small piece of metal that can easily fall out. If it does fall out, you just need to make sure you put it back in. The tripod won't stand up without it. Once you've got the tripod up, the next thing you need to do is put the camera on top of the tripod, just like it is in the picture shown. When you do that, you need to plug in the small lead that's got the small HDMI fitting at one end. You'll also need to plug the power cable into the camera, and if you look at the diagram, those two cables run underneath the camera, and there's a piece of metal with some holes that allow those leads to run through. This is basically to reduce the strain on those cables so they can hang loose, and once you put the camera up, they don't fall out during your streaming. You'll also need to open the screen shutter, and on the side of the camera at the front you'll see a sliding switch. You can just flick down and that will open up the screen shutter. And then also just make sure the camera is secure on top of the tripod so everything's tightened so that it can't move, and it will stay still throughout your streaming for the day. One other thing that you'll need to do is if rain is forecast, you'll need to protect the camera with a waterproof bag. A food bag or something that you can cover over the top and then use tape just to secure it is ideal. If you don't put the waterproof bag on and it gets wet, the camera will break. It's not waterproof. So now we want to start setting up the picture. So take the power cable coming out of the camera and plug the other end into the red 5 meter USB cable. When you do this, I recommend you add tape to ensure that the cables stay connected during streaming, and also so that the cables are protected from rain. And then the next thing that you can do is turn on the camera. There's a small button on the side of the camera just behind the screen, and it will tell you when you turn it on that there's no SIM. Don't worry about it, this is absolutely fine. You then need to take the other lead that's coming out of the camera, so this was the one with the small HDMI connection, and with the other end of that lead is plug that end into the HDMI connector and plug it into the input end of that connector. Then if you go in the box, you'll find another 5 meter lead, and this one's a HDMI 5 meter lead, and you can plug one of those ends into the output on that connector. And again, once you've plugged those in, just use the tape to make sure it stays connected during the streaming, and also to protect the cables from the rain. So next we need to position the camera. So the first thing you need to do is angle the camera so it's pointing towards the pitch, and you can adjust the zoom by using the button that's on the top of the camera. Once you've got the camera pointing in the right direction and it's zoomed in to roughly how you think you want it, you can start to extend the tripod upwards. So as you extend the tripod upwards, you need to ensure that all the screws are secured tightly. Okay, you probably want to raise the tripod in total up to about 10 to 12 feet. If you go too high, if it's windy, it will wobble. So the lower you have it, the less it will wobble, but the higher, the better the angle for the feed. What I suggest you do as you extend the tripod upwards is use the green cable ties and some tape just to secure the wires, to make sure that there's no strain on the wires. And if you look in the picture, you'll be able to see what I mean there, how the tape's been used and the cables just hang loose so that they won't fall out during the stream. Now you need to take out the green screen. So if you take the 5-meter HDMI lead and plug the other end that's available into the in socket on the screen, you'll then need to get the battery charger, which looks like a car charger, out of the box, and you can plug that car charger end into the battery pack as shown in the picture, and then plug the other end of that sort of battery charger into the DC 12-volt socket that's on the green screen. When you do that, what should happen is the screen should now turn on. If the screen hasn't turned on, just tap the button on the battery pack and that will generate a flow of power. And also just check all your connections. So next you need to check that you're happy with the picture that's on the screen. If it's not pointing directly at the pitch, just move the tripod just to make sure it's pointing in the right direction. If you do find you need to zoom in or zoom out, what you will need to do is bring the camera back down on the tripod and adjust the zoom using the button on top of the camera. And then once you're happy with the picture, what you can do then is remove the HDMI lead from the green screen and unplug the car charger from the screen and the battery pack. At this point, you'll no longer need the green screen and you'll no longer need the charging cable that you plugged into the battery pack. So those two things you can put back in the green box. So once you're happy with the picture, we now need to plug in the encoder. Now the encoder is the thing on the pictures which has got the QR code on it, and this is the thing that will connect us to the internet. So the first thing you need to do is screw in the antennas. So the antennas need to go from 4G into the 4G screw socket, and the Wi-Fi one goes from the Wi-Fi into the Wi-Fi socket. So just connect them as it's shown in the pictures, and then on the side of the encoder there's an on-off switch. So if you just hold that button for a couple of seconds, you'll hear a bleep and that will turn on the encoder. And you do not need to press any other buttons on the encoder at this point. Now the encoder will take approximately 30 seconds to a minute for everything to start working properly. It's basically like starting up a Wi-Fi router. So when it's taken a minute or so just to set itself up, what you'll need to do is make sure that the 4G icon has turned blue and that the bottom cloud icon is green. The icon lights might flash, but this is absolutely fine. Next, you'll need to plug the 5-meter HDMI cable that was plugged into the green screen. You'll now need to plug that into the front of the encoder as shown in the picture. You'll then need to take out another lead, which is a short 1-foot lead which is a mini USB cable at one end and a USB cable at the other, and you'll need to plug the mini USB end of that into the back of the encoder. Then take the other end of that 1-foot mini HDMI cable and plug that into one of the side sockets on the battery pack. Do not use the middle socket, as the middle socket doesn't generate enough power that's going to be needed to charge the encoder. We're now coming towards the end of the setup, so we now need to make sure everything's got power. So the next thing you need to do is take the 5-meter red USB cable that's coming down from the camera and plug that into the other side socket on the battery. Again, don't use the middle socket, it doesn't generate enough power. Once you've done that, just press the button on the battery pack. Do not hold that button, just press it. And you should see a minimum of 2 blue lights on there. You'll need 2 blue lights will cover a day's streaming, but yeah, just make sure there's at least 2, but it will probably show 4. And then when you do that, this will ensure that enough charge is being sent to both the camera and the encoder. And if you look at the encoder, what should now show when you've pressed the battery pack is a red or possibly a green light will be showing as the second icon down, and that's just showing that there's charge going to the encoder. Now if you're looking at the encoder and you're seeing lights of a different colour to what's in the picture, just contact whoever is dealing with your Frogbox as the administrator, because something hasn't quite gone right if that's happened, and they should easily be able to help you. Now if your battery pack is flashing red, don't worry, all you've done is activated the emergency lights. If you hold the button down on the battery pack, those lights will disappear. Okay, those emergency lights only come on when you hold the button down for too long. Okay, so your stream is now effectively ready to go. So what we need to do is just make sure everything's just safely placed, ready for the day. So as you can see in the picture, what you want to do is place everything neatly by the tripod. You want to try and avoid any direct sunlight to the battery or the encoder. So to do this, you could use the box by shading the battery and the encoder by just partially shutting the lid, or alternatively you could use some chairs or anything else which might just add a bit of shade. And if there is rain forecast, you need to make sure you cover the equipment with either a bin bag or just use some chairs, preferably without holes, just something that will make sure that none of the equipment gets wet. Again, just a reminder, the kit is not waterproof, and if it gets wet it will break. Okay, so your setup is complete, but what you might want to do is a final check to make sure everything is working. Now there's a thing called Frogbox Go, which a few people have access to in the club. Now if you do have access, you can log in to Frogbox Go and you'll be able to see a preview of your stream when you are within 1 hour of the match starting. If you don't have Frogbox Go, all you need to do is ask someone that does have access and they'll be able to do this for you. Now if the stream is not working when it's checked, Frogbox Go will or should be able to advise what's gone wrong, and you'll be able to correct anything that may not have worked. And then your stream will go live on YouTube exactly 10 minutes before the scheduled start time. Okay, so hopefully your stream went well. So now what we need to do is pack everything away. So what you need to do is unplug all the cables, make sure that nothing's wet when you're packing it away, remove and discard any tapes that you may have used, make sure that small metal piece that was at the bottom of the tripod hasn't dropped out when you put that away, because we'll need that again next time we set up. Make sure when you're packing everything away that none of the wires are tangled or kinked or anything like that, and just put everything away in the box and the bag neatly, ready for the next stream that we do. Okay, so that's it. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, just contact anyone who administers the Frogbox at the club. But apart from that, hope everything went well, and good luck with any future streaming. Thank you very much.